Al meer dan 10 jaar vormen de New Yorkse Catskill Mountains het decor voor de muziek van Mercury Rev. Hoewel ooit begonnen als een experimentele noiseband, maakt het trio de laatste tijd op hun platen het betoverende landschap bijna tastbaar.
For us, we're just making this music, and the environment is where we live. Of course, it affects us, but not in such a linear way. There isn't a store in town where you can leave with a big bag of Catskill Mountain music, you know? People are always asking us, and sometimes on the streets someone will recognize us who's come from far away to see the Catskills because of a Mercury Rev record. You know, and they'll ask, where's Grasshopper live? And most people wouldn't know him by that name here. So they just say, gee, grasshoppers live in the field, don't they?
Kingston. It's like a little Twin Peaks or something. Even so-called normal people are a bit crazy just because of, you know, some of the desperation of the place. I mean, it was this town that had a history, and then in the 70s, there was IBM moved in and things, and they had left. And so there's a lot of, like, lost dreams and people who had these visions of making their fortune and things, and it's all gone now.
God knows how many people are constantly coming to us as if we were some sort of tourism board for the Catskills of, you know, could you set me up a tour of the mountains? And we just live there, and often you forget. You don't see the mountains when you live there. I don't walk around, I'm not a mountain man, you know. I don't live in a shack and off of the land. But the mountains are there. They have their own energy and power that in some way must affect what I do.
Just to show you I don't poison you. Never drink a bartender pours you and then he pours himself something different. You know?
Nice driveway.
Yeah, nice driveway. Yeah, that's zdrowie in Polish. Oh. Now you feel better, right?
Oh, I feel great.
Johnny Horton, Battle of New Orleans. I'm going to play this for you, and we're all going to sing along. All right, I'm going to start choosing now. Stan, you put some new stuff in here. I'm going to play that one we always play when we come in here.
Stanley's, I don't know, it's a warped little bar. It's like it's taken, it's like our music. It's taken out of context. It's a total special place. You walk through that door and it's like nowhere else. Stanley, the bartender, he's a funny older Polish man who's incredibly like entertaining, and it's just like nowhere else. You know, you miss places like that.
No, 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 no. Well, we might as well have another one more. Anybody else?
You know what we're trying to do? We're trying to get our record release party here.
All right.
You know our record is going to come out. We have this record, this new record.
You're putting out a CD, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, CD, and it'll be on the record, on the vinyl as well. If you have your vinyl, you have a record player?
Yeah. Well, put it on the 45.
All right, well, we'll put it on the, we'll make a 45 for you.
45.
And it's coming out, and so we're trying to get all these people to come from New York City to come up here and rent your bar out for the night. How about that?
If you let me know.
Yeah. In 1814, we took a little trip, along with Colonel Jackson down the mine in Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we fought the bloody British in the town of New Orleans. There wasn't quite as many as there was a while ago. 5 months more and they began to run it from down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Old Hickory said we should take them by surprise. We didn't fire muskets, we would look them in the eyes. We held our fire till we seen their faces well. Then we opened up a squirrel guns and really gave them hell. We fired our guns and the British kept coming. There wasn't quite as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run it down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico.
The reason that the Catskills seem to work for myself and for Mercury Rev in particular is because those support systems that exist, our few loved ones and friends, they're not bothered at all by those blinking lights, chart positions, album sales. In fact, it would rarely ever cross their mind to ask, you know, because they're just unfamiliar with it, and they really don't care. They take you for the person that you are. Why this works is crucial, because it allows us to fail and to come home to some people who simply embrace you and buy you a beer and say, chin up, tomorrow be a better day, Jonathan, in the studio. We don't come home to a record company. We don't come home to a sales team or a marketing squad that says, what did you do today? Is the song under 4 minutes? Did it go well? We fail so often, and yet we always get back up and go back in, and this is a direct result of having a great cushion, a great rubber padded room to throw yourself against in your small town where nobody gives a shit what you're doing overseas or how your record is selling in Kalamazoo. They don't care, they don't ask. They just know you for a person who will come over and fix their gutters on Saturday morning or watch their dog.
Well, she tossed all night like a raging sea, woke up and climbed from the suicide machine. With her Spanish candles and her Persian comb, stuck on the rocks inside Opus 40 stones. And scratching her wrists in the pouring rain, she collapses down upon the ocean floor. Again, tears and waves, minds on fire. The night's alone by your side. Catskill mansions, buried dreams. I'm alive, she cried, but I don't know what it means. But somewhere out there across the moonlit sands, there's a line drawn like the lines in her own hand. And slamming her eyes and locking the door, she collapses down upon the ocean floor. Again, tears and waves, minds on fire. The night's alone, it's by your side. Tears and waves, minds on fire. The night's alone by your side. Tears and waves, minds on fire. The night's alone, it's by your side. Get it, grasshopper.
We were just working under that idea of turning music into dreamy, surreal music. Taking music that took you someplace else on a journey, somewhere in your head or wherever. We don't like to be called weird or whatever, but it's also jumping out on that limb, taking a chance, and taking the music to another place, or taking the words to another place, that place that you can't even really describe, but is in your imagination.
I tend to embrace a lot of different realities equally, you know, without paying too much importance to one or the other, but to try to bring them all into some sort of balance. It's not always easily achievable, but I've never been one to simply escape into, you know, a dream world where you lay your head on the pillow and enter another sort of realm. That's where language does fail us, and that's where art comes in, you know. Those alternate realities, those parallel universes, whatever the word is that is in fashion this year. I can't describe it. It is my art.
Thousand kings, favorite queens, buried with their precious rings. When they lived their loved queen, but in their tombs I It makes you wonder, why can't I? What was the reason for the color of your eyes? Spiders and flies, they live and die. Ain't legs to stand on and 2 wings to fly. It makes you wonder, why can't I? What was the reason for the color of your eyes?
Bijna was Mercury Rev de studio ingegaan met de legendarische producer Jack Nitzsche, die in de jaren 60 en 70 werkte met onder meer Phil Spector en Neil Young. Enkele weken voor de opname van All His Dream overleed Nitzsche.
He said it was one of the best records he'd heard in many years. Now, how many years that actually was since Jack listened to a record, I don't know. But he loved the record, and he loved the chord changes and the high voice. And we began speaking, myself and Jack, over the phone for a period of months, you know, every now and again. And one of the first songs we were going to work with Jack on was Spiders and Flies. I don't think we ever would have thought that we could have done a whole album with Jack. You know, he made it quite clear, you know, about his reputation in the studio. And
What kind of reputation?
well, I don't know. I can't speak from experience, but I think, you know, judging from the artists that he'd work with and situations he'd been in before, I would suppose it was a turbulent one. Ourselves were not the most easygoing fellas in the studio either, and you know, when the idea came up to perhaps do a whole record, I don't think either of us thought that it would go this full distance. You know, certainly the record company shuddered and shivered and quaked and begged us not to do this, for fear that it would be a very expensive Greek tragedy from which we might obtain nothing of, in their opinion, commercial value. You know, that this could just go off into the mental wanderings and imagination of a bunch of crazy people and cost them an arm and a leg with very little in return. Yeah. That was the charm.
Paths that run from your door climb through the trees. They wind like a snake, the kind you can't escape, the kind you can't conceive, the kind you can't believe, with prickly little thorns and sharp tiny teeth. Well, they're hungry for
I thought I'd like to be in a band. I thought I'd like to be a performer and write songs and do stuff like that. But I figured the best way to do that is if I was an engineer, I'd meet people who were already doing it, who were serious about doing it. And I did meet people who were serious about recording, including the Mercury Rev people at the time. And so I worked on some of their very early stuff. And we'd work, and it would always get down to like, well, there's really not a bass track on there. You play bass, right? Okay, sure. And I'd go put a bass track on there. And before you knew it, I ended up being in the band or whatever. So. When we started the band, touring was inconceivable, so nobody worried about it. But as it became a reality, I think it wasn't really what I wanted to spend my time doing. So, no hard feelings. They continue, and I don't, and that's fine. It's like the giant box of tapes and documentation. This is all like all the digital backups for the record. And then the other box is just the one song on there. Jonathan and all three of those guys at this point, really are concentrated, and when they're not here, typically they are getting together, rehearsing, trying out new ideas. Literally, sometimes they come in with, on just one song, they'd come in with 30 new tracks. And obviously there's a lot of time spent there, and we'd go through and maybe we'd keep 20 and maybe we'd keep 1.
I didn't notice that there were some very loud guitars on it.
You what?
When you hear the song, you don't notice that there are that many distorted guitars on it.
Sure, they're all sort of bubbling
yeah.
underneath there,
Yeah.
You go back and listen, you hear them all again, but there's everything, and we threw the kitchen sink at it. Sean playing some lines here. Each track, this one's timpani, there's crashes, cymbals, horns, pianos, there's 3 different piano tracks, there's, it's ridiculous. John wanted to do a natural sound, and I wanted to encourage him to do a natural sound. But this is not folk music, this is not natural sounds, we've used every single box in this room all the time to make that record. That is not natural to me. I've had to run out to the store and buy patch cables 4 times while making this new record. It's not natural. So it doesn't feel natural to me. And not in a bad way though. It feels great. I love the new record. But I know what went into it. I know the mountains of circuitry that went into it. So it's not like there's a couple guys in a room playing guitar,
And strikes without warning. forgives you like Jesus, hands you a love only found in the explodes like a phantom, pops like a light bulb, strolls in like Joe Gray at 4 in the morning, armed with a big nose, fragile as a seahorse, lives in your soul and loves you like I do.
Grasshopper and I fell out during Deserters for a few years. In that period of time, I didn't have many friends, and here was somebody who I'd never even really had to speak to because it just went in those invisible wires between us, and when those snapped, you know, the walls just got closer and closer and closer and closer. I turned mean. I turned real mean. And you realize very quickly what it's like to be lonely. Not alone, but what it's like to be lonely. I don't know. I don't know what happened between us. It just sort of broke, you know, and I don't ever want to go back there, you know, and I work hard. It sounds kind of crazy, but I do. I work hard to make sure that I don't go back to that place. There's plenty of other mistakes I'll make. There's plenty of other lows I'm meant to go through, perhaps, but I don't want to go back to that one. That was devastating.
There were drug problems that we were getting over, each in our different ways and things. So there was a lot of healing there in those ways. We still fight about things or whatever, but there's a great love there for the music and for each other, and you know, through everything we've been through. We're good friends.
And at times it's been my own self-destructive urges that have pushed me away from what it is that I needed to be doing, whether it was through years of substance abuse or sometimes simply a lack of patience. When we make our records, I tend to go into a deep state of non-communication with those people closest around me. And this is very sad in a way, because I see it coming on, and yet sometimes I find myself not being able to get out of it. I'm not there, you know, deep inside there, trying to work things out. And that takes its toll, you know. And so you find that your friends and your loved ones and your family, after a while, they just don't take you quite the same way anymore because they know you're leaving. And they put up this protective wall, as they must, to try and not get hurt every time. And so they become distant themselves to you because you've become like this fleeting phantom that just sort of graces their lives at unexpected points. I need my saw here. I've got to find my saw. It's over there. For myself, I'm a success story, a good one. It was down in the bottom and came up again somehow. There was a point in my life when I used to count the lines on my face in the mirror every month and just keep a track, you know. And you can see the long ones, and people say, well, that's from smiling. You're a funny guy. And the other ones you would see in the eyes, and you say, well, those were tough times. And I no longer do that. I don't know why I did. And for a time, I suppose I was preoccupied with the changes I was going through, and I was looking for some sort of a map. And falsely, I think, hoping for a destination. And I no longer feel that way, that I have a destination.
I dreamed that I was walking, and the two of us were talking of all life's mystery. The words that flow between friends, winding streams without end, I wanted you to see. But it can seem surprising when you find yourself alone. And now the dark is rising, and a brand new moon is born.